I guess I'm like a web guy. Anything related to web, people come to me.
Yeah.
And the people that knows me, they know me out as the guy, the web guy.
Yeah. So
And sometimes they ask me to fix their printer too, but
I think that's what all nerds have to deal with, is their being their parents' tech support for the rest of their life, huh?
oh, speaking of nerds, are you recording already or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
on.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Because next week is I think it's next week, right? DEFCON.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to go to it, but definitely I want to go to B sides because that one is a lot cheaper. Um, but cool. So welcome to Profession Unknown. You
All
know,
right. Great name.
this is something that actually Manny and I were talking about just a couple 100 feet from where we're sitting right now, out front of the Innovation Center here. Really, the reason I wanted to create this podcast was because we didn't really, for me, when I was growing up, I didn't really see where my profession would go. And my dad, he was in sales, and before that, a lot of my father's and grandfather's professions were just plain old gone, right? So I really wanted to, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are just confused about what they want to do, and I also want to cover very interesting people like yourself,
Thank you.
and how they've come up, how you got to where you're at. And I think a lot of those stories aren't really told, and people, aren't just really educated with what it takes to get to, status of being a user group leader, multiple businesses that you own and grew. What's funny is when we first met, we eventually started working together, so we kind of had some background as well. And it was a pleasure working with you.
Likewise, man.
So anyway, let's. I want to kick off into some questions here, just
Sure.
kind of about your background and stuff like that. So
Sure.
tell us where you're from,
Yeah.
some of where
I
you grew up.
am a U.S. citizen, but I grew up in Brazil, and I moved here to the U.S. in 1996, and for good in 1999, and here in Vegas since 2015. 3 years now, and I love this town, man. Like, it's a great place to go. But it was funny when you were talking about we were kids, and I remember there is a great speech by Steve Jobs about connecting the dots. I don't know if you heard that one before, and I didn't know that. But when I was 13 years old, I remember I got a magazine, and there was like a tech magazine, and there was like a program, all the coding there, like in 1 page or 2 pages in BASIC, for you to type this coding in your computer. I had an old ZX Spectrum. I think it was called Sinclair here or something like that. In Brazil, it was ZX Spectrum, and in England. And I remember I typed in this code, and all what it was doing is you enter the date of birth and time, and you tell you in a counter how many seconds have you lived. And I still to this day, I'm 46 now, and this was I was 13 years old. So, 33 years ago, I wrote that, and I still remember that feeling, you know. And I didn't know I was going to work, as a programming, as a hacker,
Of like
as
writing your
a
first
digital marketing
program.
or anything. But I still have that feeling in me. So sometimes when we are young, we don't know yet what we're gonna do it, But once you get there, maybe you look back and you understand why that happened. And so I graduated as a civil engineer. I was an intern at a computer lab in Brazil back in 1992 when the internet went there, only on the schools. And I still also remember another feeling when I saw for the first time a guy send an email to another one. So he sent an email, he sent a document to another guy in England, and we're all like the interns looking, behind the shoulder of this teacher, and the other teacher would reply back, and then right away, and we were like, "Wow, this is like what? This is like a fax machine, but it's online, and this kind of things." So I still remember that too. So, and I wasn't a web professional, but things will, if you connect the dots, then you see, oh, I was leading towards that way, and my profession didn't exist when I was, 20 something. There was no webmaster, there was no web developer, there was no web designer, you know, and everything actually was webmaster. There was only webmasters, and I started to learn everything. There was no Google too, so you had to
Alta
dig
Vista.
into the IRC channels and to try to find information. And I graduated, but then as a side work, I was doing websites for people, and I remember then I had the lucky to build up my first like real large website. I built a e-commerce website using Perl, and there was no databases at that time, 96, 97. So we had to use text files as database. So I was using Perl and text files, and that was very geeky. But I don't consider myself a coder, a programmer. I'm more like a hacker. I read other people's code, and I understand. And I did some algorithms classes when I was back in Brazil that helped me to understand computer logic. And I think just because I was so passionate and I love it, I like it so much that I was, I could spend. I still remember, Josh, when I got my first floppy disk, and I couldn't sleep like for 3 days because, oh my god, before that was those K7 tapes. So when I got my flop disk, I said, "Oh my God, this is the future! I love this so much." You don't have to wait that long for the tape to load. And I remember my mother had to hide that my computer on the closet because I didn't want to go back to school. I say I want to do this for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? So right there, I knew that I like it. But yeah, it was fun times, and I still love it. To remember that.
So you said your mother or your grandmother?
Come again?
Your mother was kind of helping.
Yeah, my mother is very interesting. My mother is a businesswoman, and she runs a business for almost 40 years now in Brazil, in the fashion industry. And then I see here, on the script here that you mentioned my first sale when I was 6 years old, and she had the business on the back of our house. And I saw those people coming to buy, all her clients coming to buy her clothes, and we had like a kind of like a farm. Our house was like kind of farm in Brazil. There was like trees and fruits and all that. So I used to like collect all the fruits, put in a box, and sell it on the
Nice,
outside
yeah.
of the house. So all the clients were like eating the fruits that we used to grow there. And my mother say, "What's going on? Where did you get those fruits?" There is a boy in front of your house selling them. So I was selling that, and I wasn't a hard worker. I just want to make money enough to buy a kite. Once I had the money enough to buy a kite, okay, it's over.
Yeah.
Now I can go play, and that was fun. So I always liked the e-commerce part of things, the commerce part of things, selling stuff, buying stuff. I was very interested into that.
Yeah. So did you actually get fostered, you'd say, a little bit in the whole tech thing, like with computers? Did she kind of like really push you to that, or
My dad.
your
Yeah,
dad?
my dad. I still remember that also, man. That was, I think, even before Microsoft. I remember he was talking about databases, relational databases. He say, "Oh, relational database is the future. You have to learn this." And I was a kid. I was maybe 14, 15 years old, and he was already talking about that. He was very into technology. He gave me my first computer, and he was very excited. He was an enthusiast of technology too. So I guess that helped me a lot. And I guess it's his fault that I'm here now.
Yeah, it's so funny you say relational database, and now we're like moving on to blockchains and all these other crazy forms of storage.
Yeah.
That's still around, but yet seems old now. It's so funny, but yet it was just I'm sure decades when the
Yeah.
MySQL and all this. It's like funny how all this is kind of coming along so quickly, and that's why. When and I want to ask a little bit about how you kind of fell into your first job and things like that in tech. But, with it going so fast, like computers just getting, because you mentioned floppy disk, and now you show that to a kid and they have no idea what that
Yeah,
is,
right.
And my grandpa, he would joke about how he was so cool. He'd have two floppy disks to copy to each other and how like space age that was back then. So did you, when you were starting to get into this stuff, was there any kind of trigger like, oh, I can do this for a living, or any kind of like, oh, mentor perhaps, or someone you saw that?
I actually, it was kind of like an accident, because I was doing websites as a side job, and I wasn't professional. I was an engineer back in Brazil, but when I came here to the U.S., I always dreamed of living in the U.S. because the American dream and the technology is so more accessible to everyone and everything. It was a little tougher, but I remember that I started to spread two resumes back in 90 something and late 90s, and I had one resume as a civil engineer and then another resume as a web developer. And a bunch of those sites that I built I wasn't even get paid. I remember I built a forum that is still running for my soccer team in Brazil. So I built that community, and still up until to today they still run. Now we moved platforms. Now we are on WhatsApp. That Facebook paid, I think, $16 billion for WhatsApp. So we use a lot WhatsApp to talk about our soccer team and to keep in contact. And there is people from everywhere. There's a guy in England. There's a guy in the Netherlands. There is me here in Vegas. There is people all over the world that we are supporters of this soccer team. And then I went into this website. I think it was monster.com. That I sent my resume, and it was so hard to find people that back in the day that did the stuff that I did. That I still remember the guy said, "Oh, I wish I had met you before," and because it was tough. Now there's a lot of people. The competition now is a way tougher. I remember, and it was a lot easier also to get a work visa. I got my work visa in 4 weeks because there was nobody with the skills that I had back in 1997, 98. So it was really fast, but and then I switched careers. I think I was like kind of an adventurer because I spent 5 years studying engineering, and then I switched careers to be a tech guy. But if I now looking back, I see I did almost like my whole life since I was 13 years old. I was in front of a computer. So even though I don't have like a formal education in computer science, I was into that all my whole life.
Sure.
And I'm not telling to the new kids to not go study. I think it's very important. It's very important. If I could go back, I would probably do a computer science degree instead of engineering. But engineering was also really good because I could broaden my mind about everything else that was out there. So, and my mother was really supportive of me changing careers and everything, and I love it. Man, I remember my days would like go in a blink because I was so into it that 8 hours of work. Okay, oh my God, I can't believe it's already 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. When you do what you love, that things happen a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope the kids that are listening to us, they do that. They find something that they love, so that doesn't feel like work. It's true.
Doing what your passion is, absolutely.
Yeah, I yesterday I was working for a client, and I worked. I don't do this always, but sometimes I have to. So in the past probably 24 hours, I worked 16 hours because we're moving stuff into a new deployment platform that we want to use and automatize things. So actually, other people could do the deployments for us. We don't have to touch the code or any go to command line or something. He wants people that without tech background to make deployments. So we use a platform that helps that. And I had to move all those servers before the first. Before August 1st. So I did that a lot, and I enjoy it. It's that the kind of stuff that I like. So I think the really important thing for people that are, they don't know yet what they're gonna do, try to find something that you love, because that's the key. Money and success comes after, but if you find something that you love, I'm sure you're gonna, not regret anything, And I don't regret changing careers, changing from engineer to, a tech industry, because it's what I love. That's what I'm saying. I've been here in the US for almost 20 years, and man, it was like yesterday. It feels like yesterday. you know. And when you wake up and you go do stuff that you like, it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling, you know. And I feel sorry for some people that, you know, I remember like talking to friends, like, you know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they would send a message or call me and say, oh man, I can't believe I'm gonna spend 4 more hours doing this. You know, don't do it. If you are having that feeling, be brave, quit the job, and, you know, go do it what you like. You know, because I'm sure you may have some struggles in the beginning, but then you're gonna, you know, get it back once you.
Were you reluctant at all to make the whole web resume? Were you really trying to like go with the civil engineer and you were trying to fight with yourself on the web one, or did it feel natural, like I gotta do this?
Yeah, I did both resumes. I remember back in the day, and because it was tough, you know, I invested 5 years of my life in studying to build houses and stuff, and then I switched to, instead of building houses, to build websites, you know. And but, you know, it's funny. I still have contact also with my friends, my engineering friends, and they told me, you know, recently that, oh man, you made the right change, you know, because I think it would be tougher for me to find a civil engineer job here in the U.S. So because back in the day it was a lot more difficult to find someone with my background, you know, that to build websites, you know. And so I think I did the right thing, and I love it, you know. The people that are like me, that we pay a price of being here. You know, I'm away from my culture, right? The culture where I was born, away from my family, my, you know, childhood friends. But thanks to the internet, now I talk to them a lot. I talk to them a lot more than back in the day when there was no WhatsApp, Facebook, Discord, Slack, and the whole nine yards. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I did the right thing. You know, I don't regret it. You know.
Well, if you followed your passion, then obviously, right? Because you never feel like, what is this? What do they say? You never have to work a day in your life if you're doing what you love.
And there was another problem too that I just remember now. All my family, had like traditional jobs. I had cousins, uncle, my dad. They were all engineers. So for me to go, like, you know, switch that to another thing would be, how am I going to tell my dad now that I'm no longer an engineer, I'm now doing this. But I think he understood that I love that, you know, so he was supportive. I'm very thankful for my parents, because they were very supportive of my decisions, you know, my professional decisions.
Yeah, if your dad was talking about RDBMSs and stuff, he already knew kind of what was going on.
Yeah.
And, so that's really good. And, you know, I do feel bad for some of the kids where they're kind of shunned away from stuff like that, right? Like, and perhaps this generation could use their time more wisely on computers too, you know, because video games are great in some sense. I got into programming because of video games. I read a book, How to Program Video Games, and that's kind of how I got into it. And, you know, so even kids writing Minecraft scripts, mods, things like that, that's a way to get into this stuff.
And that, the other day, Cody, he shared that website with us, the zombie one that you can, you know, start the programming.
Yeah, CryptoKitty, or there was like Crypto Zombies thing. Yeah.
Crypto Zombies, that is an awesome
card trading game in the blockchain.
Yeah, man, I love it, that, you know. And then I think that's a way, you know, you bring them an attention to that, you know. And man, there is another thing that didn't exist a few years back, and now it's huge. If you go to the top 20 YouTubers, 10 of them are gamers, and they make millions of dollars, millions. You know, so
my kids watch.
I wish I was you know, my mother would let me play more video games. I would probably be.
It's a totally viable, and as it goes forward too, these tournaments I feel are going to get bigger. There's going to be more money in the pot, and you're already seeing kids wearing Adidas hats sponsored by Adidas. It's like you're pushing around a mouse, and hey, you know what? If your kid's doing that versus getting his head knocked around in NFL, maybe that's actually a better thing. You know?
Yeah, I don't know if I told you that, Josh, but close to my house in the Southwest Vegas, there is a new place there that actually teach people how to play games professionally. It's a business on Blue Diamond.
Wow.
Close to my house.
So they teach you how to play video games. They have
actually facility there for e-games professional training.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, it's something new that is out there.
I mean, I imagine that there's trainers out there, but not like a storefront. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's another, you know, new profession there. You know, you are e-games trainer, training other people how to play, you know, play well and all that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why, I mean, not only this, just that space alone where there's video games and all this stuff, but there's a whole scene around that too that you can get into, that there's lots of money in, right? Aside from that, I know these guys, not even tournaments are playing, but they're just not even yeah, like they're streaming alone and making a
Twitch.
boatload of money. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like Twitch, these streams and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that is also like the combination of professions. You know, there is this comedian in Brazil. He started on his house with a very humble smartphone, and he was making like funny movie reviews. Now he's number 9 on YouTube, and he has 1 billion views per month, and he has his own private plane. So he had the talent, he has the talent to be a comedian, to be funny, and he combined that with the YouTube platform, and now he's a millionaire, in
Yeah.
Brazil. So there is this too, there is all the new professions that we don't know yet, and also there is the combination of a traditional profession, like Charles Chaplin was a comedian back in the day when there was like black and white movies, right? But now there is this new kind of comedian that his platform is the YouTube,
Right.
you know. So
Right.
you combine those two, and then he became millionaire.
You can reach so much more people, right? I think that's one big thing I've failed on is, we do a lot of these meetups and things locally. We reach 30 people, but putting that on the internet reaches.
Yeah, well, that's another thing too. I'm a meetup junkie. I probably met like 3 years ago when I came here, and the first thing that I did when I moved here to Vegas was, oh, let me take a look at the meetups. Well, actually, I did that before I moved here. It was one of the items that I had a spreadsheet before I moved here where I put weather, traffic, events, and all that, and housing. Housing here is very affordable. So, and then one of the things is how's the meetup, how's the technology, and I think for the size of the town, we have a pretty good meetup community. I mean, tech meetups,
Right.
community, because and I think it's important for us, to anyone, listen to us. Don't be only on your own bubble. Get out of your bubble. I learned so much from your meetup, from the PHP meetup, from the WordPress meetup, all the other meetups that we have here in town, and now the new one, the smart contracts that you are running. I learned so much from that, and I think that is key for our profession. You can't settle down. You have to be aware, at least aware of what's going on, or how other people does things, the same thing that you do in a different way, because there is multiple ways of doing the same thing, right? You can
Yeah.
build a website using WordPress, or you can use Laravel, you can use Jenkins, you can use Jekyll.
Yeah. Talking a little bit about college, when I was going to college, I saw so many kids kind of just go to different degrees, and they're originally doing programming, but if I feel like if they stuck with it, they would have gotten through. And sometimes people get a little like halfway through and they're like, I don't know if I can do this, right? Did you ever feel at any point like maybe imposter syndrome or something, and then were there any things like books, tutorials, videos,
Oh yeah,
things that you helped
and
push?
especially before Google, right?
Right. Yeah.
Before Google was so much tougher, to learn things. It was way harder, Nowadays it's
The book industry was huge back then, and
Oh
I
yeah.
think it's dried up
I
quite a
used to
bit.
go to. Let me tell you something, a funny story. When I went for this interview, the one that got me here in the U.S., that made me relocate here, um, they asked me to do some stuff using Flash, but it was like kind of programming, like Action Script back in the day. And I told them I did a lot of things that they want me to do it, but other things is I told them, hey, I don't know how to do this, but I know there is a Barnes and Noble down there. Do you remember Barnes and Noble? It's
Yeah,
past of
old
history.
book.
So there is a Barnes and Noble downstairs. I'm gonna go there, get a book, and I come back and I will do it. And I say, no, go do that, but come back in 2 days. And then I went there, I bought the Barnes and Noble book, I read the book, and I did everything that he wanted. And I come back, I did everything that he wanted. And I show him, and then the next day he said, oh, okay, you're hired, we're gonna hire you and everything. And when I went there, when I was getting my first paycheck, he told me, Yeah, we really like you and everything, but do you want to know why we hired you? There was other guys here, but because of your attitude, to tell them, to be honest, that you don't know that, and to have the positive attitude, oh, go get it, find the answer. So many of those professions, we are just problem solvers. You have to like to solve problems, things that you don't know yet, things that you're gonna learn, and then you're gonna solve it, and it's a great feeling when you do something like that. When I don't know how to do this, let me try to figure out, let me how to hack it. And one other thing that I'm gonna tell you too is I think it's a great tip, and I got that tip too. Trying to find some gurus that you can follow them. Even online or in person on the meetups. Try to stalk those guys. And I did that with a bunch of people. And I remember when I moved to New York, I lived in New York for a while, and I back in the day I was coding Code Fusion, and there was this big guy there called Ben Forta. He was like the Code Fusion guru. And I remember when I went to New York for the first time, I went to the meetup. He was visiting. He lives in a small town, but he was visiting New York, and he was talking at and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that my guru is right here in front of me, the guy that wrote that book. I was so impressed. But it helps when you follow those guys. And now it's easier, for you to follow them on Twitter, follow them, interact with them on Slack channels and all that. So I think whenever I had a struggle, I would try to find who is the expert in that subject and try to create a connection first, and then try to see if they can help me somehow. And then one other thing that I think it's really important is when you use those forums and stuff, or Stack Overflow. It's good to give feedback once you find out the answer. If the answer is already there, hit the button up. Tell them that, oh, that's cool, or some comments, because then you can help a lot more people too, right? And I hate when I go to a forum and a guy asks a question, and then later on he would just say, oh, I fixed the problem. And he doesn't say how he fixed the problem.
Yeah.
He doesn't mark the topic as a resolved. I think it's very important. And give also feedback, because someone else spent some time telling them what was the way of doing things, and they couldn't even like the post, or they could give a thumbs up or something.
Yeah. Good maintainers definitely have a way of making sure that everybody's kind of like getting listened to and stuff like that, because I've seen there's, especially in GitHub, in some of those merge requests, it gets sloppy. It's kind of funny, people's egos and stuff.
Do you have any gurus that you like to follow?
Absolutely. I have a lot of mentors and stuff, especially in the past, that I looked up to. Steve Jobs, John Carmack. There were a lot of great programmers. John Carmack created Doom. It's software.
I used to play a lot of Doom.
Right, and he did a lot of just programming genius kind of stuff back then. That trickery to get the machines back then pumping out the graphics that they could. And he definitely reading and having those sorts of mentors. I think my biggest mistake though is I didn't know the meetups existed. Like when I was getting into this, I went to college because I needed the degree. I felt like the piece of paper to prove that I knew how to program. I didn't have the work experience. I didn't have even the personal projects really to prove it, other than a couple of websites.
You just a parenthesis there. You're touching something very, very important. One of the biggest problems I think those kids have is they don't have professional experience. So what I did, and it made me, and I didn't know I was gonna get that, is I did a lot of websites for free when I was a kid. A lot, and it happens. I was, I was, my uncle's webmaster, and I did his website and everything, and it's a good way to learn, And sometimes they would pay, sometimes they wouldn't pay, but that helps you build your portfolio. So whatever profession you have, if you have a portfolio, even though if you don't have like a traditional formation, like education to that, but you have at least a portfolio to show up to them, So I highly recommend, whatever you do it, create a portfolio, because that is going to help you. Oh, I don't have a degree in computer science, but here, this is what I did. That helps you.
Yeah.
But go get a computer science degree too, because it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I know plenty of good developers that don't have degrees, and I know
They are
plenty of
awesome.
ones that do have good degrees. I also know a guy who has a master's in computer science, and he's working at Safeway, right? So,
It works both ways.
it does.
Yeah.
And so it goes with, again, just making sure that you follow your passion, because you're right. You're not going to get paid what rock stars and all this other stuff you think you're going to get paid getting into this. And there's a big debate right now, and I want to touch a little bit on it's not on here, about unpaid internships. There's a big debate right now on like, should these be allowed and whatnot. And, I think you got to watch. You got to take care of yourself, making sure that you don't get taken advantage of. But at the same time,
You need the
you
experience.
got to get the experience.
Yeah. When I was back in school in Brazil, I was fortunate that my mother would support me, financially. So I was doing 20 hours per week at the computer lab when the internet came over to Brazil. So that helped me a lot. I was ahead of everybody else. Nobody else knew what was the internet, and I knew because of that, because I was 20 hours per week on the computer lab. So yes, I think I think it's important, and it's also a payback because interns they screw things up sometimes, right? So I wasn't reliable, of doing something wrong because I was just an intern, right? But I learned a lot. I learned a lot by being there. I think it's important if you can have the luxury of having someone else to financially support you while you are learning, how you are investing to that. I think it's great. But nowadays there are many different ways, right? Also, I think it's different now.
Oh, yeah. You can self-teach. And were you self-taught, really?
A lot.
Yeah.
I did 2 years of internship at the computer lab, and also did 2 years classes in algorithmics. So I learned a little bit about coding using Pascal. It was back in the day. It was interesting. But and I also a lot of things are self-taught, and that's another thing. I love open source because of that. Open source, you can dive into other people's code, and especially if they are well commented out, so comment to have good comments. You can learn a lot by just reading other people's code. Oh, let me see how he implemented this. And the other day we had here at the PHP meetup, we had the patterns, right? Meetup, and that was
Design
great.
patterns.
By the way, how did you found out about meetups? How did you learn about meetups?
Oh shoot! Oh, you know how Adam Englander he started the PHP Vegas meetup,
Okay.
and I was like, "What's meetup?" Right? And then that's when I started going to the PHP meetup when it first started, and it's just been history ever since. Yeah, I've been to quite a few of the meetups and events and stuff like that. And I think the biggest reason I love hosting the meetup is just we get some kids through here that. I hope because again, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it, right? Like, showing somebody how to program and then letting them grow, I think is a whole nother step of that too, right? So were there things you did to motivate yourself to kind of keep pushing forward? And I want to touch on some of the businesses, also that you've built and some of the things you've learned there. So.
Yeah. Well, my first business was like selling fruits, in the front of my house to buy a kite, and then from there, I was under a work visa for 7 years here in the U.S. Right before I got my green card. Once I got my green card, then I was able to work for other companies, right? Because when you have a H-1B visa, you can only work for the sponsored company, right? The company that is sponsoring your visa. So after that, in 2007, and then I started to do consultant to other people's business. And not to brag about, but I made a lot of people a lot of money. I got clients like they would sell like 5,000 per day, and 3 years later they were making like 100,000 per day. So, and that doesn't mean that they went good, because they actually one of those companies, they went out of business. Because if you make bad business decisions, no matter how much income you are getting, you're gonna go out of business.
Yeah.
So then after that, I learned that lesson, and I built this beautiful website for them, It was very beginning of SEO, and we already had SEO before I even had a name. I was already doing that. So he was like number three in the world for this business, and he went out of business. And then I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe that this kid that this baby that I fostered and I made it grow so big now is out of business." And then I decided to do it myself. I built my website. I rebuilt the website completely. Moved from it was on a Windows server, and I moved all the code to Linux server, and I did all the tech part of the business, everything from coding, from database to marketing, everything. I did everything that I could do from my end, but it's very difficult, and it's almost impossible to run a business by yourself. So I was lucky to find someone else that could take care of the operations, the day-to-day operations and customer service and everything. And the way that he found about me is because I built a real estate website, and at the bottom of my this website I had like built by my company name, and he used to use this real estate company, and he saw my company there. When he went to my website, in my portfolio, he saw that I built this other company's website that went out of business, and it was very well known. And he said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this guy built this." And then he contacted me, and then I told him, "Oh, I built this new website. I need a new partner to take care of the operations and everything." So that was 2013, and now 5 years later, we're still running and growing like 20% per year without any in bootstrapping, no investors' money, no anything. And they're growing little by little, and we're doing good there. And because I knew technology, I knew user experience, I knew digital marketing, I think we could. And because we are like a small company, because the thing is, those big you can on the internet you can compete with those big companies because they have such a big infrastructure that they can't take decisions, and they can make things quick, right? So what I'm doing on this website is I'm trying to keep up with the new technology and the new stuff on the cutting edge, because that's the competitive advantage that I have over those big companies with big budget. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So this is the kind of things that I've been doing, and see how it goes. I hope soon I can start getting back money back, from there. We still invest everything on the company. I
Sure.
don't take any money back from there, and but that's the thing too. Sometimes people think only about the end goal, and they forget the road. And it's fun. The road, even though if this project doesn't work out, I had fun. I learned, and I had good time with it. And you have to find something like that too. Don't think only about like the money or being successful or anything like that. If you see like the guy that I told you, the Brazilian guy that he's number 9 on YouTube, he did thousands of videos before he became what he is now.
Right, right.
But I'm sure he enjoyed. He wasn't doing that for the money.
Right.
He was doing because he liked it. And the same thing. I'm doing this because I enjoy, I have a good time. And if it works out, great. If it didn't work out, I enjoy the
Is
road.
this the rims business you're talking
Yeah,
about?
the
Were
wheel
you
business,
in?
yeah.
Were you into wheels before you got in?
When I was a kid, yes, and then
Yeah.
I had a car accident. I was a little bit away from the car industry, but then I'm a car guy. I like cars, and that's another reason why also I moved here to Vegas, is because the SEMA show. Every year I used to come here to the SEMA show.
Here, yeah.
It's huge,
That's
man.
awesome.
It's huge. And,
Yeah.
it's the largest, aftermarket conference and show on earth. And then yeah, I'm into that industry too. So we'll see how it goes. I I like cars, and I like technology, so I put those two together, and it's
Yeah,
working
yeah.
good.
So you said maybe let's just touch a little bit on like growing and running a business, because you said it's nearly impossible to run your own business. And I want to touch on that because I don't know if I fully agree with that. But at the same time, I think without automation, you're absolutely right that it's impossible.
Yeah, well, because this if you are running a digital business that is only online, maybe yes, you can do better yourself. But this is like tangible products. I have tangible products.
Right.
I can't build, be in charge of all the technology, all the digital market, and also be running all the operations, the day-to-day operations of the company, dealing with customers, dealing with fulfillment, dealing with partners and suppliers and all that. So he takes care of that, and I take care of the online, and it's working out good, And we did in a way that um, we understand each other's responsibilities and everything, And one other thing that I'm gonna tell you too, if you ever, and I had many failed entrepreneurships before, and I learned from my mistakes. One thing that I think it's very important to do is make sure not only what each other's responsibilities are, but also how you're gonna split up. If you one day we split up and you go your way and the other one goes their way, who is gonna take off what? And one thing I did with him is all the online assets are mine. The code are mine, the database is mine, the domain's mine, and all the Facebook page that we have and all the Facebook groups that we have, it's mine. And he uses that, maybe like as a royalties, what I'm saying? Because what I'm saying is I don't have control over the operation. So if he goes out of business, I still have that asset that I can go, to someone else and, I have this,
community,
digital asset that I want, do you want to help run the operations for this, Because I didn't do that on the first one that I told you, the first one that went out of business. So I lost everything and I started over. So we learn from our mistakes.
Your business partner disappeared on you, or what happened?
No, they made a lot of money. I was like kind of consultant for them, And they made a lot of money, but they made a lot of bad business decisions, and they end up going out of business. And when they went out of business, this website that was number 3 on Google disappeared.
Wow.
The bank just shut off the servers off.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I learned that aspect, and I'm building this asset for myself. I hope nothing happens. He continues to run the operations well. It's smooth, and then I think it's gonna do good for both of us. But that's the key thing. Make sure that what are each other's responsibilities to do it. Before you start, and also if you split up, what you have and what they have.
Yeah.
Because it happens, sometimes business, doesn't work out, and at least you know how to split up,
I know a guy right now who is in business with a business partner that isn't doing anything, and the other guy's doing all the work. And it's really disheartening because there's nothing in the articles of organization of their company or anything that defines any of this. So he's doing it legally.
He should have used a smart contract to build that partnership, right? Let me ask you, how that would work in smart contract way? You'd program somehow that the guy had to do something deliverable.
Yeah. I suppose if whatever work or whatever you're doing, if there's some way to track that, you could get that in the blockchain somehow. There probably would be a way. I imagine I think there's time tracking systems already they're putting into the blockchain. Again, just because you can doesn't mean you should, though.
Yeah.
That's what I was actually interviewing a while back for a blockchain job, and during the interview, he's like, "Would you use a database or would you use blockchain?" I think that's kind of a trick question, right? And I said database because should have been a database, and he's like, "Okay, right." You know what I mean? It's like because so many people are like, "Oh, just because you can store it in the blockchain doesn't mean it." Yeah. So it's definitely a new and I think important technology because of the decentralization aspect. Before Bitcoin, there was no really big decentralized system like that. That's why these things like Ethereum and smart contracts in general are interesting to me. They're already using them to buy. I know a guy who wanted to sell his house for Bitcoin, and he actually was getting offers. You know what I mean?
Really?
He ended up doing a cash deal, but you can do that stuff now. There's brokers and stuff out there. I just saw they were selling art recently for Bitcoin. As far as cryptos, what do you think? Do you think it's kind of a bubble, or do you?
I'm a newbie into that. I didn't listen to my my gurus back in the day to invest into bitcoins or thing like that.
Dude, we all have those stories. Yeah.
Right. I have some old laptops that I have in my house that I actually let me check if I didn't have anything here because maybe something there, but I couldn't find anything. But I'm very I've been reading a lot. I've been watching a lot of videos and trying to now I'm gonna go to that conference that I told you the other day on Discord.
I grabbed some tickets for that too.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
be there.
another beautiful thing about Las Vegas, man. We have access to those
So
conferences.
many conferences.
Yeah, I've been here for only 3 years, and I think half of the conference that I went were after I moved here, and I've been here for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So that's another great thing about Las Vegas. You know, if you are planning on moving to Vegas, there is so man, ZenConf, right?
Yeah.
There is
Which I'm speaking at. I
Cool.
got lucky there. Yeah.
Congratulations. What are you talking about?
I'll be doing a 3-hour tutorial on Terraform and AWS stuff, and then I'm also doing just a framework mashup, like how to build APIs in a bunch of frameworks.
Yeah. There is so many great tech conferences, and also CES is here in town.
Yeah,
and
I go to that every year. I love that one.
Yeah.
SEMA.
Yes.
I have never been to SEMA, but you invited me that one.
Come
year.
join
Yeah,
me.
I missed out big time. Yeah, I got to bring the kids to that one.
Oh, they're gonna love it.
I'm gonna go to Viva. I think. Yeah, I already bought tickets to that one.
Cool.
But oh yeah, you know it's funny because like old cars and stuff. I wish I could collect them because 50 years from now, I feel like especially with there's a whole push about always having humans to be able to drive, because with automated cars eventually there could become a law that says nobody's allowed to drive their car now, like the cars have to drive. And so these car guys are like, oh, there's no way you're taking my car from me, it's like my guns, like right. So I mean it's kind of funny because we were joking at if our kids would even be driving cars, you know what I mean? And I think that's a great thing to learn too, is all of that AI and just self-driving technology has so much room for innovation and developers right now.
Solving problems. There are so many problems out there that there is no solution yet. That they could use it.
Have you ever heard of the runaway trolley problem?
No, not yet. What it is?
Really? Okay. I'm going to probably butcher it a little bit, but basically it comes from an old concept of a runaway trolley. And there's a guy that's like sitting on the side of the road with this like switch that he can turn the trolley onto a different track. And I think it goes something like, there's a person, let's say, standing over here on the track, and then there's a family on the other side of the track. And let's say it's going down and it's about to hit the family. Like, does the guy, by pulling that lever, and it going into the other guy, is that considered murder? Or you know what I mean, because he actually moved it and got that guy instead of the family. If he let it alone, there's these moral questions. And anyway, the reason it goes into AI and self-driving is because these computers are going to get to a point, and this is actually me extending it too. Let's say that the self-driving car is about to hit someone and can swerve and go into the sidewalk, but there's someone standing there too. What if there's facial recognition now on top of that, and it could tell like, oh, okay, this is a family, this is a guy. I'm sorry, dude, but there's
even
a family
his background,
here.
maybe he,
or what? If he's a felon, and it's like, okay,
bad credit.
But then is it murder though, right? Like the car chose to do that, right, rather than just leaving it alone. So it's kind of funny because there's going to be a lot of these paradoxes, I feel. Even here in Mexico, they have an entire city built that doesn't have any people living there. It's just a bunch of self-driving cars. Like it's a test town for cars. Just
That's interesting.
Yeah. Are you thinking about getting a hybrid or anything like that? Or
One day I'm gonna get a Tesla too.
You like a Tesla?
Do you get yours?
No, dude.
Oh
no. I've been complaining to Elon this whole time about the $35,000 Tesla, because he promised that one, and they've only had the $49,000 premium options.
Upgrade,
yeah, and I just don't want to spend the extra. I'm not swimming in money, so I don't want to blow that money like that. But I know my dad's got one, his business partner just got one, and I'm like, yeah, here I was number 7 in line. But I think especially with my kids and their kids, just like the air quality and stuff like that is so poor around large cities like LA and stuff like that. You can just see it flying in, you know what I mean? And I think the cars have a big thing to do with it, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. And, I'm by no means an expert in all of that, but I mean, I think that's going to be another room for innovation as well. Like just, I heard this concept about building this huge building that's just like an air filter in a city. You know what I mean? And it just just cleans the air in the city or whatever.
Oh.
Like, I don't know if they could ever do something like that. But again, that would require like Public Works or someone to get involved, because I don't think the private industry really
there's so
do
much
anything
things, man. And that, going back to the stuff that I told you, about the partnership and all that. One other thing that I love it, and I think you like it too. And I don't know. Have you been to the startup weekend here in Vegas before?
Yeah.
It's great to go to those kind of events because you find people with different backgrounds and people that not only do the same thing that you do, but also they complement you. Oh, you are a great programmer, but you have no visual or user interface or UX UI experience. What I'm saying? Or the guy has good eye for design and you don't, right? And usually programmers don't have a good eye for design, right? So it's good to go there and see like how to, if you are a kid, if you are a student, how you could actually work on on that team. What I'm saying, to build something up. And also to understand what it takes, right, to build the whole project. All the aspects of it. And then you mentioned that the iceberg stuff. I get that like all the time. Like clients, they see a website from the user point of view, and they forget like there is so much behind that website that they're not ready. I usually ask, I got a new client and they say, I want to build a website just like this one. And I say, are you ready to have a website just like this one? And then they say, what do you mean ready? Do you have fulfillment warehouse? Do you have all the digital marketing, all the everything that you need to have that website up and running?
Yeah.
So,
for those who are listening, the whole iceberg method or mythology really is talking about how the top half of the iceberg is poking out. That's what the consumer sees. Everything underneath, which is like 80% of it, right?
Oh, yeah, or more.
Is really all that back end stuff, fulfillment. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten ahead of myself and you go and build a website and you're not thinking about any of those pieces that are way more important.
Yeah.
To the business's success.
It's just as important, I think, and yes, you have, that's the good thing about, if you go to a startup weekend, you find like business people, you find, financial people.
Well, there's also something about going and getting your first job or going to a event like that and being under the gun. You know what I mean? Like sink or swim mentality. And I feel like that's the only way you can grow, is by just pushing your boundaries and making yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah. And make mistakes, that's how you learn. Make mistakes. Don't be
better
afraid
there
of mistakes.
than in the workplace, right? Yeah. So no, absolutely. Events like that I think are huge, and I definitely learned a lot about being on a team, gathering the right people to build your business. I've also seen it where I've had two marketing guys that just kind of took it and went too far too, right? Like, and there were things I could have done to help improve the marketing side, I think. And so, there was a bunch of things I learned from that, right? But I also just learned how important it is to get an MVP done. So many people talk, but then when it's time to deliver, there's nothing there, right? You end up seeing PowerPoint presentations.
Just tell them what MVP is for the kids.
Oh, yeah. Minimal viable product. I'm sorry. I make a lot of assumptions on this podcast until I'll eventually get used to this. But yeah, it really is just, okay, I was talking to this guy who's got this really interesting concept about, and let's just say it's in the smart contract realm, and he's going all different ways with it, Uber and this and that, and it's like, dude, slow down. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like everybody wants to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, but it's the execution that nobody wants to do. Yeah. Like you said, everybody's thinking about the end goal and not putting in the work.
Yeah, even Mark Zuckerberg, he started with his first well-known project was way simpler. The one that was like comparing girls.
Face Smash or something like that. Yeah. And then
then he evolved to something else. But yeah.
And originally, they were only accepting college students into Facebook. I think you had to have, So, and it's so funny how that's evolved.
Yeah, and, but there are some great projects that comes out of that. The other day I was talking to a friend that I don't. Have you heard about Rover?
Is that the dog walking?
The dog sitting, dog walking thing. They started as a startup weekend project, and now they are a multi-million company with like 200 people working for them.
They're not the only one.
Yeah.
LaunchKey, there's been so many great startups. And mind you, those have really brilliant people behind them too, right? They're motivated, hungry, and they wanted to build something.
Good idea, talent, and also the dedication to
magic. It just all came together. Yeah. But and a little bit is luck, but it's putting yourself into those situations over and over until you kind of you hit it, you know. Because by no means is it paved with glory and gold. There's so many failures along the way, you know.
Yep.
It's like I don't know how many times you've broken a website pushing your code up there, but that feeling.
Lost count. But yeah. The good thing too is when I go to those startup weekends is you see how people they put themselves to the test. Like you have to, you know, you don't be afraid, don't be shy of, you know, letting people know of your plans, and because you're gonna learn, take it out from there too, you know. Oh, I didn't think that way, because you get that feedback from them with different backgrounds, and then you evolve yourself and you evolve your product or your idea too to something else, you know. And I think we can get that too from the meetups. And whenever, I don't know if that happens to you, but whenever I am speaking at a meetup, even if I'm talking about something that I know, I learn something new. You know, oh, let me take a look about this. There's something new there that I have to learn. That's another thing that, you know, I like the meetups is because when I'm talking about the meetup, I go research on that subject and I learn something new. You evolve somehow, you know. So when you do that, and I think that's why it's so important for those kids to be, you know, to have public speaking skills, you know, because you're putting yourself to the test and then you're evolving your stuff, you know, and you're getting better at, you know, getting the feedback from them and evolving. And that's how it is, you know. We have to. That's the key thing for this, you know, Josh. You have to evolve.
Yeah.
You have to.
You can't have thin skin. You gotta
especially
really...
in our industry, in the tech industry. It's impossible. You know, I know there is still people that are making money coding COBOL and, you know, Pascal and all those old languages, right?
In fact, some of them are making a ton, actually.
Yeah, a lot of money.
They're dying. Yeah, that's a smaller.
But yeah, you have to evolve if you want to keep up with the new stuff and, you know, gonna survive. You know, I think it's another key thing about a new profession. You know, you have to. You know, it's different. Like if you see like construction and all those other things, they have new tools, but it's the same. You know, it's the same math, it's the same science behind. You know, and all that. On ours, a lot of the tools that we use now didn't exist a few years back. Slack didn't exist a few years back. You know.
Yeah, there's a whole like front end library revolution. I see
there, right? No.
GitHub. I mean, there's just been a huge explosion of technologies, and you know, I'm more on the PHP side, and I see all these JavaScript libraries every day coming out that I'm trying to keep up with, and it's really mind blowing. You know.
Do you have a favorite?
Again, I'll say it's my favorite. In 2 years from now, it's going to be garbage. Like, right. You know what I mean? It's so funny how quickly things are evolving. And that's why, I mean, just separating the back end from the front end, it's so funny how back in the day it was all just one thing.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And like now it's like, oh, there's all these different professions within. Like you said, it was just webmaster, right? You know how to build a web page, go for it. You know what I mean? And now it's like really starting to get matured. And really, exactly. And in fact, I have a buddy of mine who I work with that's from Ukraine. And, you know, he said one thing when I moved here was everybody here I've worked for wants me to do everything. Whereas in Ukraine, the companies I worked for there, it was like, here's your job, here's your role, that's it, you know. I have experienced some level of that here, but at the same time, I think that that's helped me tremendously because you're pushing yourself in all these different directions, and you learn kind of what you're good at, what you're not, you know, and I would never say try to force something you're not good at. There's people who hate programming because it turns them into, you know, just they switch off their compassion switch. They can't listen to they have to concentrate on the code. And they just become a different person almost, like you're on the spectrum a little bit, right? You know, so I think one thing that's definitely important is just making sure that you're doing what you love, to not push yourself in a direction or forcing something. You know, like you said, if you're into wheels or you're into shoes or whatever, there's ways to spin that into something else that can make you money or whatever, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you have to do what you don't like because you have to pay your bills and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But do that, but then have like a side plan where you are going, doing the stuff that you like, and hopefully someday you can get paid your bills doing what you like.
Have you ever heard of Gary Vee?
Yes.
Yeah. He has like a saying. He's like, eat shit for 2 years, and then you know what I mean. And he's right. Like when I first got into this, I was making 30,000. I think it was all 1099. The guy didn't even want to hire me as an employee. I was in college and I was just like, hire me, dude. You know, I didn't care. You know, I had a baby on the way, and it was that. And when I got in, I was like, what am I doing? Like I had to learn all this stuff real quick. But what better way than to jump in the deep end? Yeah. And sometimes it takes that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to support. If you have kids, especially, it's even tougher. That's what I'm saying. I was very lucky that my mother could support me while I was learning. But sometimes you don't have that luxury. But try do it. Google has a really interesting thing. I don't know if you're aware of that. Like you work 70% of the time for Google, 20% of the time like studying new things, and 10% of the time for your own projects, right? So that's how, I don't know if you heard about this old social media that's gone now. It's called Orkut. It was huge in Brazil. The guy, on the 10% of the time, he was working on Orkut. That became like, it was before Facebook. And Google wasn't aware of Orkut until later on, and it was too late. But if Google was aware of that, they could have beat Facebook. But because they didn't were aware of that, they lost it. But I was saying, you can spend, maybe spend your spare time. If you are working to pay your bills, spend all your spare time doing something that you're like a bank. It's like a savings account that you are spending, investing in yourself. And there are so many good resources out there. If you have a library card in Vegas, you can access lynda.com with a Y, and there's a bunch of great resources there for free. Instead of watching video game guys, maybe you go watch lynda.com while you are in your spare time, and you are building an asset for yourself, a tax saving account, or let's say
while you're doing it, it may not seem like you're getting anything rewarding back, but you're building that knowledge.
That's another problem, because a lot of people, especially the kids, they want instant gratification, right? And this is takes some time for you to be a good programmer. You're not going to be a great programmer one day to the other to the next. It takes a while. But if you like it and you enjoy it, you're gonna probably learn it. And the cool thing is, and also be honest with, like, say, I happened to be before, and I told you I got a project that I didn't know how to do it, and I told my client, hey, I don't know how to do this, but I'm gonna figure out, I'm gonna learn, and it's great because you're gonna getting paid for doing that kind of stuff, right? And happened to be back in the day, I didn't know what Laravel was, and then I had to do a project in Laravel 5 years ago, and I had to learn and make money. But I told the client that I didn't know, and that's another mistake that I made, and I don't do it anymore. I try to. I try to define the technology myself instead of let my client define you're gonna use PHP, or you're gonna use Java, you're gonna use Python or something. Now I have because of my experience, I want to define the technology myself. If I can define the technology, then great. Okay, let's go work together. Because sometimes they push you to do some stuff that you don't know, and you have to learn as you build. It's like trying to fly a plane and build the plane at the same time. What I'm saying?
Yeah. I've gotten into that before because there was at one point Node.js was getting huge, and they were building websites, but SEO wasn't caught up. So I kept telling the guy, we should build an MPH, or we should do a site that can be scraped. This SEO is super important. We were going back and forth, and I think that Google was just coming out with that ability to start to scrape SEO from like Ajaxy sites and stuff. But again, it's like picking the right tools for the right job is so important. But going back to your point about not like over promising or not lying, let's just say it that way, right? Be honest, because I think definitely some of the best advice I've gotten as far as interviews are concerned is going in there and just saying, "Listen, I don't know that, but I'm willing to learn,"
Attitude.
and showing that you're ready to learn, yeah,
Yeah,
and
have a
you're
positive
motivated.
attitude.
Absolutely, because if you don't have that, why the heck are they going to want to hire you and take a risk on somebody that seems like they don't even care about the interview, or let alone wanting to show that they can, exceed expectations or whatever. That job I got, I had a C++ test that I probably got half the questions wrong on, I'm sure, right? But they took a risk on me, and you know what I mean. And you just sometimes got to just try your best, and at the same time, just being realistic with them about that stuff, because you can get trapped easy.
Yeah, I did those tests before, and they are super tough because you are, let's say, if you are doing PHP and you are using PHP Storm, a lot of the things you don't know on top of your head, but the IDE helps you out, right?
Yeah.
Auto completion and
I
all
can
that.
Google it, yeah.
Or Google it, or right there the insights that you get, and when you go do these exams, it's very tough, because you don't have the capability of using that tool at the same time. And last year when I went to DEF CON, one of my favorite talks was this chess master player, Kasparov, and he was saying that they made an experiment where chess player, not so good, not master chess player, but not grandmaster chess player, together with a computer, playing against a grandmaster with a computer. So there was a chess master player with a computer, and a grandmaster player with a computer. The masters beat the grandmasters because they use the tool. You know what I'm saying? They use the computer. They learn to how to together to face the stronger opponent. And the grandmasters, because they are so, the egos and all that, I don't need a computer or anything, they got beat. You know what I'm saying? So the point is, sometimes you have to take advantage of the tool that you have, and then you're gonna be better than a great guru or whatever, because you're taking advantage of that tool. And I don't see anything wrong with that. If you can use a great IDE for your whatever you're doing, and I love PHP Storm, and you actually got me to PHP Storm.
Yeah. I just learning new stuff is so important. Infrastructure as code has me really excited. Have you heard, like Terraform and stuff like that, right? Because now it's just this whole new way of like architecting the web in code, right? I think, again, that's just kind of a new revolution where it's like, if you're still going and logging on to AWS and clicking and, I want to use, and there's nothing wrong with that from learning. But then when you're putting up an enterprise level system, you want that repeatability. You want that ability to, and I see people out there that are just so against learning new things and hurting their company almost because of it, right?
They are in a comfort zone, right? And I guess I see that all the time when I work on especially when I work on larger companies. It's very tough to move things fast. As I said before, that now goes back to that point. It's very tough to change things on a large company, and that's why how smaller companies beat up big companies.
Right?
Because they have that flexibility, they have that willing, they have that guts, to do things that those big companies don't do it, right? So it's also for the kids listen, it's a matter of finding the best how do you fit on those? Do you want to work for a big company that doesn't, move as fast, but you have stability, or do you want to, be more adventurous and work, in a smaller company, doing things, breaking things? I'd rather work on a smaller company. I worked for big companies before, 3,000 people working on the same project, and I didn't like it. Like, for me, stuff that I could do it like in a week would take them 2 months to build it.
Just too slow, huh?
Yeah, because it's how it is in big companies. If you work for a bank, if you work for one large corporation, you're not gonna have things done like the next day. But but there is also it's that thing. Okay, you don't move as fast, but at least you have stability, or you have, and you interact with all the brilliant people too, that because you are working on a team.
That's the biggest thing right
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
that's a good thing too. When you work on a big company, there is so many other people, there that are like specialized
And
in
not
something.
everybody gonna like. That's one thing I had to learn real
Yeah.
quick. I mean, I will worked with some what we'll call brilliant jerks, right? But I mean, in their own right, maybe they were definitely at a different level than me at that time, and but at the same time, I never looked at that sort of attitude as productive or good, and that's why I like hosting the user group and why I like to be open and really help other people up is because I was treated that way when I first got into tech by someone. Like, oh, he literally said, "You're stupid," right? And that
Your
got
face.
under my skin, dude. Yeah, because I was like, I don't know, maybe in some sick way I felt like I had to prove him wrong, and that's why I'm here or whatever.
Yeah,
but-
a lot of people take things personally, but I think as you mature and evolve, you see it's not you, it's them.
It's personalities.
Yeah, their personality.
Yes.
I work with those guys too before, and but yeah, you have to learn how to interact in a team if you want to work for a big company. That's for sure. And there is so many different personalities, so many, and a lot of people sometimes they are dealing with stuff that you don't know, struggling with something personally, or some issues that they have that you don't know yet. So you think it's something that he has an agenda against me or something, but it's not. Maybe he's
You have no
having
idea what that
troubles
guy's
himself.
going through. Yeah. His
don't
mom
know.
could have died for all you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, no, that's so true, and just treating everybody like a human, I think, is most important. But have you ever been in any like environments where it's been a little, let's say, male chauvinistic? Like has there been any kind of bad experiences with teams and things like you just couldn't deal with it, or like wait, did you kind of like separate yourself from those sorts of things?
Yeah, I work on both. I think I work on bad teams and great teams, and you take the thing is you learn from those experiences, even good or bad, and what I try to do is always, I guess I'm a hopeless positive person also, or something like that, because I always try to see like what I could take out of that bad situation. What I'm saying? That's how I grew up, and even when bad things happen to me, you don't know yet why that bad thing happened, but then later on you look back and you see, oh, wasn't as bad. When one case that I can tell you, this is when I was 19 years old, I had a really bad car accident, right? And I used to write, and I was at the engineering school, and I used to write with the left hand, and because of the car accident, I had this big cut on my arm. I had to start writing with my right hand, and at school we all had this to draw by hand the engineering classes, and I told the teacher, the professor, that I couldn't do it with my right hand because I was left, and then he allowed me to use AutoCAD. So I was the only student back in the day that wasn't doing design by hand. I was doing design using AutoCAD. So I bought this big book. I still remember the author, Giorgio Mura was his name. I bought his book and I read all his book and I started doing the design using AutoCAD. And that brought me closer to the computer lab. And that's how I got the internship. That's how I learned about the internet. So you see, even the bad car accident that I had, and I spent like a month in the hospital. If it wasn't the car accident, I would probably be here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So sometimes bad things happen to you, but for a reason, and you don't know yet. But later on, with time, you look back and understand.
Yeah.
And
What
so
doesn't
the
kill
car
you makes
accident,
you stronger.
Yeah, that car accident made me closer to the computer lab because I was using AutoCAD, and then move on, and now I'm here. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something. And when you are on I work for some like poison teams like that, where I could never ever leave my computer open. I had to lock out the computer every time that I stepped away from the computer. I had to command L.
What if they like jumping on there and just?
I was afraid that they would mess up with my code and tell that it was me or something.
Really?
Yeah.
That
It was
bad?
that bad. Yeah.
Wow.
So
I've been in some environments where they're like changing your background on your desktop, but not
no,
like
they would
vindictively.
change some other line of the code, and I would
Oh,
push that code or something, and then they would break something.
I
You know what
guess
I'm
you
saying?
never know. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a bad one. But I learned also about a lot from other stuff too. You know, and I think I'm very grateful and thankful for the experiences that I had that brought me here. You know, and I learned a lot. You know, and it's interesting to see back in the day the internet was so maybe um, not romantic. I would say so new. You know, people are so. I work for a company, man. You won't believe this. I work for a company that spent $2 million to build a website. They spent $2 million to build a website, and I was telling them, you know, uh, because that happened a lot. You know, the first bubble, the first internet bubble,
Charging whatever.
like the baseball field, you know, that you can build the field and they would come. I worked in so many projects like that you know they built their website, but nobody went to there to use the website. You know what I'm saying? They had no marketing plan or anything. Oh, let's just build this and wait for them to use it. You know, to become popular and viral. And that's not how things works. You know.
It was a lot harder to get stuff viral back then. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
oh
Because
yeah.
I was sitting in chat rooms and stuff like that in the early 2000s, like AOL and like, you know, and everybody wasn't talking about stuff like, I was in the wrong chat rooms maybe, but, you know, like, were you into Usenet at all? Like
Yeah.
bulletin board stuff? I see that was after, or a little bit before my time, but, were you doing like, I heard like downloading, you could do all kinds of stuff back
Oh
then.
yeah,
Sharing
I was
files.
like from the very beginning, you know, before actually the commercial internet. You know, I was because I was only at
Gopher.
the schools, you know,
Right.
the
Okay.
internet. And then before that, we also had something in Brazil. I don't know if they call the same here, the BBS, bulletin board
Yeah,
systems or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. They call it, and you know, we used to dial up to some number and try to and talk to other people.
There was something called the shotgun modem where you would put two dial-ups. So you'd have 56K times two or whatever. I don't know how it worked with splitting up the packets or whatever, but
Yeah, that sound was so annoying and connecting. To
oh,
the
dude,
calling
and
it.
like now they even T1 lines seem ridiculous with cable. You know what I mean? So
So and then I haven't asked you, what is your plan with the podcast? What do you want to do it? You know, what is your goal? What
my
how
main
often you gonna publish the?
I want to do one a month. You know, I want to definitely do in-person interviews like this. I don't want to do remote stuff unless it's somebody super, you know, like, okay, I'll do it because, you know, you can't get here or whatever. I'm even down eventually once we get sponsors and stuff like that to fly people in to talk to them or whatever. But there's enough local talent, I think, for
And
the
there's
next
a lot of
year.
people coming here for the conferences too.
Bingo, right? So I can, and really it's just like interesting people like yourself just talking about ways to get into this stuff. And, you know, I want to just slightly touch on some of the future jobs here that kind of really don't even have to do with programming or tech, but kind of get your thoughts on some of this stuff too. I want to see how it goes, but I'd like to at the end of this podcast kind of just cover some of the new jobs that are coming out and like your thoughts on them. So with that said, let's just start first with what do you think? Okay, nothing gimmicky, just like what do you think is a good job to get into now, and or an industry in general. And you know what should those kids be looking towards, or you know, what are your thoughts on that? Should they just kind of do?
Yeah, one thing, like the first thing that came to my mind is I think like AI combined with agriculture would be huge, because you know we now are like over 7 billion people on Earth, and there are so many limited resources to feed all those people, right? So if you can like optimize the way that you know the agriculture works.
I think it's called Growbox or something. There's an open source CAD, you know, drawings you can download, and you can basically 3D print your own kind of like automated
Irrigation systems.
Well, yeah, it like actually it puts seeds into the ground, it waters your stuff, and it's like on this track system, right?
Yeah, and something like think about something like integrated with the weather. Oh, if the broadcast says there's not gonna rain for the next 2 months, don't do anything. But then monsoon season is coming or something. Then okay, now I do everything like as quick as you can because there is raining coming.
I wonder what programming languages those little devices are using now. I mean, probably lower level stuff and stuff like
maybe,
that.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely. I think AI in general, like I was mentioning with automated driving and things like that. But robotic technicians, I think, is going to be a big thing too.
One thing that I haven't seen yet, but I already saw for other professions actually at the CES last year, is those augmented glasses.
VR.
Where not VR, they augmented. You
AR,
can see through them, and they actually give you instructions. Let's say you are like fixing an engine, a car engine, and as you look at the engine, it's giving you instructions about stuff about that car.
Cool.
Like you are looking at the car manual right here on your.
Could turn anybody into a car mechanic, pretty much, huh?
Or a physician or something. You are looking at some organs, and you see. Right,
you have like a surgeon that's like, "Don't worry, I got my Google Glass on."
I don't know if I would trust that. But those kind of things, I think we're gonna see it a lot. And I don't know why there isn't something like for programming language. Let's say you are looking at some code here and it's giving you some insights. Oh, this is this pattern. This guy is using this pattern, right?
Yeah.
To build this kind of thing here or something.
Yeah, totally. I could see that.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And but being more like specific, if I was gonna start today, what I would jump into JavaScript.
Yeah.
To learn JavaScript, from A to Z. I think I would start from there. Right now, because I think the market, I think there is a huge need.
There's a lot of work there
for JavaScript guys. So I would start with using JavaScript, being more like
What are some of your favorite JavaScript libraries?
I don't know, man. I don't have a favorite. I like React, but Vue is good too. This is not I'm a kind of a whore on this when it comes to that. If that's the job, I'm not religious.
I'm using jQuery.
I don't have like I'm not religious about anything. If that's the job, I will do it. At my house, I have a Windows machine. I have a Ubuntu right here with me, and I also have a Mac. I'm not that guy. It's kind of I don't touch a Windows. I don't.
Yeah.
I have it.
Yeah, with like NPM, it's so amazing to see kind of like like with package JSON, you can download all those dependencies in. Whereas like a decade ago, I'm sure you remember
struggling.
Dude, putting all of those files into your project,
and the versions?
Big bloated projects. Yeah, you have to commit all of your dependencies into your project and stuff. We've come so far now, and that's why I think with some people just getting into programming, they want to jump into it so quickly, but there's all this tooling you kind of need to learn and the ecosystem and stuff like that. And I think JavaScript's probably one of the easiest probably to jump into. I don't have a ton of experience there, but I would say that looks like a really good language to learn and a lot of work there. And you can do front end, back end, all kinds of stuff with it.
So many different devices too.
Oh, and it's everywhere, right? In your phone and so
your watch.
Oh yeah. So I think like you mentioned, there's vertical urban farmers. I think that are going to be a whole new profession. But as on top of that, what you were mentioning with VR and AR, have you ever heard of something called the Void that they have over at Venetian? I think
No,
they have it all over the place, but so it's a VR, right? You put it on, and it's like it's a physical maze inside, but they overlay 3D stuff over the real walls.
Wow.
So you're not running into walls and stuff because you can see the walls, but you look like you're in like a huge, castle or something like that. And I think they have like a laser tag thing and stuff like that. But I mean, programming some of that stuff would be amazing, What about quantum computing? Do you know anything about that? Or
No, I'm just a curiosity. I read a little bit, but I don't know much about that. The only thing that I'm diving to now, and it's I think it's still I don't know if it's still late in the game. I'm going more into blockchain. I'm reading
Mhm.
more blockchain and those kind of things. And all the technologies around it. I think this is gonna be huge.
Yeah, there's a lot of people making a lot of money there, but I think a lot of that has to do with just the fact that there's not a lot of people doing it, right?
Hmm.
So people out there can charge whatever they want because there isn't a lot of competition yet, really.
Hmm.
Um, but
You said
yeah,
you had a client or a job for on the blockchain industry.
yeah, I'm working on some personal as well as some contracts for. I can't when I have the time or when I can, I'll actually disclose what the idea
Hmm.
is once it's public. But it's pretty interesting because it just mixes kind of that physical with the digital, at least for this concept.
Hmm.
And like I was saying, with selling a house in a blockchain, I think people are even thinking about putting titles, into the blockchain. There's a company called I think Vincheck IO or something that's got a blockchain where they're putting all the vehicle history into the blockchain.
Really interesting.
These different decentralized storages, we'll call them,
Hmm.
are good places to store data like that. But I always got to think about how are you going to get the data in there,
Hmm.
right? It's one thing to say like, oh yeah, we're going to build this and like you said, build it and they will come. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of scams and stuff in the space, unfortunately, right now that I
Hmm.
think are going to burn the industry a little bit in the next couple of years. But in the next decade,
It's
it's around to
inevitable.
stay. And I think it's going to be a little like this as we saw with
Hope so.
Bitcoin going down big time. I think it's going to be like that for a while, but that technology has a place in the world for sure. Um,
Hmm.
so, and beyond that, I think really we'll see whether if it actually does have like because regulation I think is going to be a big thing that could kill it,
Hmm.
and I don't know what could happen there, but it's kind of I think more of a lot of libertarians and stuff look at that technology going like, oh, the government can't control it, I want in, right? But on the inverse of that, and I've heard this argument before, it's like, okay, what is Bitcoin being used for? Well, it could be used for nefarious things as well.
Hmm.
But then the argument is, well, cash can be too, and has been,
Hmm.
so I don't know. I mean, I'll hang on to some and see where it goes, but the thing
Keep an eye on
is,
it.
yeah, it's just it's an interesting technology, but I think the bigger piece of this is those decentralized apps and things like that, because um, who knows, even governments and things could run some important infrastructure on there as redundant
Hmm.
backups, right? And I think Delaware, in fact, is using blockchain to store all of the
Wow.
entity
Really
information that they get from the Secretary of State, right?
nice. That's cool.
So you can, it
Yeah,
makes
I think
sense
yeah.
there.
Once the government start using it, I think we're gonna see a lot of growth.
Hmm.
Because I think that's the thing. The government is bad for some, from some perspective, but also they give you that the credibility. You know what I'm saying? That it lacks on the blockchain industry because of all the scams that happen and all that. You know what I'm saying? So some kind of regulations. Um, the web has the W3C behind it, right? And and there is nothing behind like an official blockchain entity that enforces things. So
Yeah. Shout out W3C. I love that site.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I'm looking here to you say 2025 plus, and I don't know if you remember that cartoon called the Jetsons. Do you remember the Jetsons from
Yeah.
back in
Yeah.
the day?
Yeah.
So everything that they show on that cartoon we see nowadays, but the flying cars,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So you see the FaceTime. They used to do FaceTime, 30 years ago on that thing. Now we see it.
Right. Right.
So I think yeah, those yeah, and I also the other day I was reading an article about a flying Uber. You could
I saw that too, I
you
think.
saw
Yeah.
that.
There's a company that's I think for $1.2 million they have a car that can go from 100 miles an hour on driving, up to 200 and something flying. Like these wings pop out the side of it and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a
So
two-seater.
maybe we don't have the traditional cars using the automated thing, but perhaps the fly ones would have. You know what I'm saying? If you can want to, drive your car here like the old style, old way, you could still drive, but maybe in the air, which is a more regulated space,
Autopilot or whatever.
we could have more that, automation there, where you just press a button and you fly it. You know what I'm saying? From here to there.
There was an amazing talk at DEF CON on how poor the FAA, well, I should say more of the infrastructure of airplanes and stuff is, and how dangerous, because you can broadcast like there's planes in the sky when there really isn't and stuff, and screw up air traffic controllers and stuff, and none of it's encrypted, and so there's a lot of room there, I bet, for development. I know.
Oh, yeah. If there
Drone
is a problem,
dispatchers.
If there is a problem, there is an opportunity for you to work on that, solving that problem and making a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So
yeah.
That's another big area right there.
Well, cool. I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Well, how long have you been talking? Last.
I don't know, about an hour and a half or something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I could talk about technology my whole life.
I know. If we didn't have to jump out of here, I think we could probably go on for another hour and a half. But
thanks for having me, man.
No, absolutely. I really thank you for your time here, and also for helping push me too to create this podcast. Right. I mean, again, we were just talking, and you're like, that was the night before Bourdain killed himself, actually. Yeah, that was crazy.
Man. Maybe he gave me that inspiration.
It was just weird. I don't know. I'm getting chicken skin a little bit thinking about it. But, I'm glad that we had this time together and we talked about this. And I would just say to not only just kids, but even adults and anyone looking to get into whether it's tech or engineering or anything like that is do it. Push yourself to look at what's out there, go follow a couple of people in that space and learn from them. I even am a proponent of asking good questions. If you formulate good questions, someone who isn't a complete jerk off will answer you. You know what I mean? If you have a meaningful question to them about how they got into this or whatever, or even just a technical question, just make sure you formulate the right question. Go see if there's an answer out there first, obviously, too. But this stuff is out there. And just one final thing, too, there's times to play and there's times to work. And just touching on that last bit there, I see so many kids nowadays, 8, 12, and I've been there, man. I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm wasn't into playing Diablo and all this other stuff.
Back in the day, I was in pinball, playing pinball all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but it's still, you got to be a kid. You got to have fun, but definitely foster your interests and push yourself to learn from those. And don't listen to anybody that tells you you can't do that or you shouldn't go look into that because XYZ. Because if you like it and it's your passion, don't listen to any of those people. You know what I mean? I probably would have gotten a college degree quicker if it wasn't for some advice not to go to college, which means I probably would have gotten into tech quicker. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe just like you said.
Yeah, I think both are important. Hands-on experience is important, but also the degree is very important. And not only just because what you learn there, but also all the networking, all the connections that you make at those places too. I still make business with my friends that I met 20 years, 30 years ago in school. You know what I'm saying? You create this network, this relationship, this trust among us, and nowadays, so it's a lot easier to keep up with them, than back in the day.
Especially when you jump in the deep end like that, you have those resources to pull from,
Yep.
So, all right, Manny.
I mean, it was nice. Great
So
show. I wish you all the success, and thank
we'll
you
be
very much
back
for
next
having
month.
me here.
Yeah, I'll get.
And what is the web? This is professionalunknown.com.
Professionalunknown.com. Yeah,
Cool,
I'll have the
man.
site up in a week or so once I get this all edited and
Awesome.
stuff. So it'll be exciting. Episode 1. Yeah. Cool.